My name is Melissa Harper, and I'm 66 years old. I'm so glad you're here to listen to my story. Please stay with me until the end, and afterward write in the comments what city you're watching from. I really want to see how far my voice reaches. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. For 8 years, my grandson Gregory was diagnosed with severe autism, completely nonverbal, unable to communicate, trapped in his own world. Or so we all believed. The morning my son Edward and his wife Linda left for their Alaska cruise, the front door clicked shut behind them. Gregory stopped rocking in his chair, looked up at me with those dark, intelligent eyes, and spoke in a perfectly clear voice. "Grandma, don't drink the tea Mama made for you." That single sentence changed everything I thought I knew about my family, and it saved my life. The October morning mist hung heavy over our Portland neighborhood, turning the maple trees into ghostly silhouettes. I stood on my wooden porch, wrapping my cardigan tighter against the damp chill that settles into your bones at my age. Edward's black BMW sat in my driveway, trunk-open suitcases already packed. 7 days. They'd be gone for 7 whole days on that Alaska cruise, leaving me alone with Gregory. "Mom, you absolutely sure you can handle him?" Edward asked for the 3rd time that morning. My son stood there in his expensive wool coat, worry lines creasing his forehead. At 38, he looked older than his years. Tired. Always so tired lately. I smiled and reached up to pat his cheek. "I was changing diapers before you were born, honey. Gregory and I will be just fine." But Edward's eyes darted to Gregory, who sat on the porch steps clutching his worn stuffed elephant. The same elephant he'd had since he was 2 years old. My grandson stared at nothing in particular, rocking slightly. The way he always did. The way he'd done for 8 years. The medical diagnosis was clear severe autism spectrum disorder, nonverbal. Gregory hadn't spoken a single word since he was 18 months old. The doctor said he probably never would. Linda emerged from my house carrying a canvas tote bag, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, Chanel No. 5, heavy and cloying in the morning air. Her platinum blonde hair was perfectly styled despite the dampness. She always looked like she'd just stepped out of a salon. "Melissa?" She smiled, showing teeth as white as porcelain. "I made something special for you." She handed me the tote bag. Inside were 7 individual packages, each one labeled in her neat handwriting. Day 1, Day 2, all the way through Day 7. "Chamomile tea?" she explained, her voice sweet as honey. "I know you've been having trouble sleeping lately, and with your memory issues." She paused delicately. "Well, I made these extra strong. They'll help you rest." My memory issues. That's what everyone called them now. The forgotten appointments, the car keys in the refrigerator, the moments when I'd walk into a room and forget why I'd come. At 66, I figured it was just age catching up with me. "That's very thoughtful, Linda. Thank you." I took the bag, feeling the weight of the tea packages. "Just pour hot water over them," Linda continued, placing her manicured hand on my shoulder. Her nails were painted blood red. "Morning and evening. They'll help with the fatigue, too. You've been looking so pale lately, Melissa." Edward interrupted, crouching down to Gregory's level. "Hey, buddy." He ruffled his son's dark hair. "Be good for Grandma, okay? I love you." Gregory didn't respond. Didn't even look up. Just kept rocking, hugging that elephant tighter. I watched Linda's expression as she looked at her son. Just for a moment, something flickered across her face. Not love, not concern. Something else. Something I couldn't quite name. "At least he won't be any trouble," Linda said, straightening her designer jacket. "Come on, Edward, we'll miss our flight." More hugs. More reminders about Gregory's schedule. Bedtime at 8 sharp. No deviations. Strict routine is essential for his condition. Linda said all the right things. She always did. Finally, they drove away. I stood on the porch waving until the BMW disappeared around the corner, heading toward the highway that would take them to SeaTac Airport. Gregory's small hand was tucked into mine the entire time. "Well, sweetheart," I said, turning toward the house. "It's just you and me for the next week." Gregory looked up at me. Just for a second, I could swear I saw something in those eyes. Something aware. Something that made my breath catch. But then he pulled me toward the door, hurrying back to his toys, and I told myself I was imagining things. I had no idea that in a few hours my entire world would shatter like glass. The afternoon sun filtered through my kitchen curtains, painting golden rectangles across the worn linoleum floor. 3 o'clock. That in-between time when the day feels suspended, waiting for something to happen. I stood at the counter, the kettle beginning to whistle. The tote bag sat there with its neat labels. Day 1. Might as well start Linda's tea routine. I opened the first package. The dried herbs inside looked normal enough chamomile flowers, that distinctive apple-like scent. But underneath it, there was something else. A faint chemical smell, sharp and medicinal, like the smell of a hospital ward. Probably just strong herbs, I muttered, shaking the contents into my favorite mug, the one Gregory had picked out for me 2 years ago, covered in painted sunflowers. The kettle shrieked. I poured the boiling water over the tea bag and watched the water darken to a deep amber color, much darker than regular chamomile, almost brown. From the living room, I could hear Gregory moving around. Usually he'd play quietly for hours, arranging his action figures in elaborate patterns only he understood. But today he seemed restless. The old floorboards creaked as he paced back and forth. I reached for the honey jar. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be. Getting old, Melissa, I thought. That's all it is. Getting old. Grandma, the word came from behind me. Quiet, clear, unmistakable. Don't drink that tea. The mug slipped from my fingers. Time seemed to slow down as it fell tumbling through the air. It hit the floor and exploded into pieces, hot tea splashing across the white tiles in a dark stain. I spun around. Gregory stood in the doorway. He wasn't rocking, wasn't looking away. He was staring straight at me with those dark brown eyes, eyes that suddenly looked far too old for an 8-year-old boy. Did you? My voice came out as a whisper. Did you just speak? He nodded. Actually nodded. A clear, purposeful gesture. Grandma, please. His voice trembled slightly, but each word was perfectly formed. Please don't drink Mama's tea. She put something bad in it. My legs went weak. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. This couldn't be real. 8 years. 8 years of silence. Of doctors and specialists and diagnoses. Of watching my grandson live in what everyone said was an unreachable world. Gregory, I barely recognized my own voice. You can talk. I always could? He stepped closer, his small fists clenched so tight his knuckles looked pale. I just wasn't allowed to. The kitchen spun around me. I managed to pull out a chair and sink into it before my knees gave out completely. The tea was still spreading across the floor, seeping into the grout between the tiles. Come here, I said, my voice shaking. Come here, baby. Gregory crossed the kitchen and stood in front of me. Up close I could see he was trembling too, scared. This brave little boy who'd just broken 8 years of silence was absolutely terrified. How long, I asked, how long have you been able to talk always Grandma since I was little? He swallowed hard. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Mama said, his voice cracked. She said if I ever spoke to anyone, something very bad would happen to you. Cold dread washed over me. What do you mean, she makes me pretend? The words tumbled out faster now, like a dam breaking. When people are around, especially doctors, I have to act like I don't understand anything. But I hear everything, Grandma. I see everything. I reached out and pulled him close, wrapping my arms around his small body. He smelled like kid shampoo and the chocolate cookies we'd had for lunch. Real. Solid. This was really happening. What did Linda put in my tea? I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Gregory pulled back to look at me. His expression was far too serious for a child. Medicine. The kind that makes people sleepy all the time and makes their head not work right. He paused, choosing his words carefully. She's been doing it for a long time. That's why you've been so tired and forgetting things. The room tilted. All those symptoms I'd blamed on age. The exhaustion. The confusion. The memory lapses that made me question my own mind. How long? My throat felt tight. How long has she been doing this? About 2 years, I think. Gregory's eyes were full of worry. It started when you began falling asleep here all the time, and Mama started telling everyone you were getting confused and forgetting things. 2 years. 2 years of Linda slowly poisoning me right under everyone's noses, including mine. I thought about all the times Linda had brought me tea, how thoughtful everyone said she was, how caring, and all the while, why now? I asked. Why did you decide to tell me now? Gregory's face went pale. Because yesterday I heard Mama on the phone. She said it was time to speed things up while they were gone. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. She said she made the tea much stronger this week. Much, much stronger. My blood ran cold. If this little boy hadn't spoken up, if he hadn't found the courage to break 8 years of terrified silence, I would have drunk that tea. I would have praised Linda for her thoughtfulness. And then I would have gone to sleep. Maybe forever. We sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Gregory had helped me clean up the broken mug and spilled tea, both of us moving in shocked silence. Now the afternoon sun was slanting lower through the windows, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. I made us grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup comfort food, the kind my own mother used to make when I was scared. Gregory ate slowly, and I watched him, still unable to fully process what was happening. My grandson could talk, could communicate, had been watching and listening to everything for years. "Tell me from the beginning," I said gently, cutting his sandwich into smaller pieces out of habit. "When did Linda first make you pretend?" Gregory chewed thoughtfully, then swallowed. "I was 5, maybe almost 5. He looked down at his plate. "I accidentally said Mama in front of Dr. Patterson. You remember him?" I did. Dr. Patterson, the specialist who'd evaluated Gregory for the 3rd or 4th time. We'd all been so hopeful that day. "What happened after?" I asked, though my stomach was already knotting up. "Mama took me to the bathroom at the clinic. She locked the door." Gregory's voice got quieter. "She knelt down really close to my face and told me that if I ever spoke again when I wasn't supposed to, she'd send me to a special hospital." "What kind of hospital?" "The kind where kids go who are really, really sick in the head." His hands shook slightly. "She showed me pictures on her phone. Big buildings with bars on the windows. She said they give kids shots that make them sleep all the time, and that once you go there, your family forgets about you. Forever." Rage flooded through me, hot and sudden. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Linda had terrorized my grandson, a 5-year-old child, threatened him with abandonment and institutionalization to keep him silent. "She said even if I tried to tell the truth, nobody would believe me anyway," Gregory continued, "because the doctors all said I was autistic, and kids like me aren't good witnesses." He looked up at me with those 2 wise eyes. "That's the word she used. Witnesses." "Oh, baby." My voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. If I had known—" "You couldn't know Grandma. That's the point." He reached across the table and patted my hand, a gesture so adult it broke my heart. "I got good at pretending. Really good. Because I was scared of losing you and Daddy." I had to ask the next question, even though I dreaded the answer. "What about your father? Does Edward know?" Gregory's face twisted with pain. "At first, he didn't want to listen to Mama about the stuff with you. The medicine." He picked at his sandwich crust. "But Mama kept talking about how expensive it is to take care of old people, and how everyone would be better off if you just went to sleep and didn't wake up." The words hit me like physical blows. My own son had heard his wife talk about killing me, and what had done nothing. "Daddy got really mad at first," Gregory added quickly, seeing my expression. "He yelled at Mama, but she knows how to make him feel guilty. She kept saying you were suffering, that you'd want it this way, that nursing homes were cruel and cost too much money." He swallowed hard. "Daddy's scared of her grandma, just like me." I sat back in my chair, trying to process this. Edward was weak, I'd always known that. He'd let Linda make most of the decisions in their marriage. But to stand by while she slowly murdered his own mother, how much does he know? I asked. "Everything." Gregory's voice was barely audible. "He helps her calculate the doses. He's a doctor, so he knows about medicine. Of course. Edward worked at Portland Family Clinic. He had access to prescription pads, medical knowledge, death certificates. The perfect accomplice." "Is there anything else I should know?" I asked. "Anything else you've seen or heard?" Gregory nodded slowly. "Mama has papers. She printed them from the internet and hid them in my room because she thought I couldn't read." A ghost of pride crossed his face. "But I learned when I was 4. I taught myself." "Where are these papers?" "I'll show you." We went upstairs to the guest room, Gregory's room, when he stayed with me. The walls still had the dinosaur wallpaper I'd put up when he was 4, back when I'd hoped the colorful pictures might somehow reach him, might make him want to communicate. Now I realized he'd been communicating all along, just not in ways anyone recognized. Gregory went to the dresser and carefully moved aside a stack of folded T-shirts. Underneath, wrapped in an old baby blanket, was a thick yellow folder. "She checks on this sometimes," he whispered. but she thinks I just like the soft blanket. He handed me the folder. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page was a printout from a medical website, Signs of Natural Memory Decline in the Elderly. Several paragraphs were highlighted in yellow marker: gradual memory loss, increased confusion and disorientation, changes in sleep patterns and appetite, difficulty performing multi-step tasks. Each highlighted symptom described me over the past 2 years. Every single one. The second page made my stomach turn: when elderly parents become a burden, making difficult decisions. In the margins in Linda's neat handwriting: private nursing home, $5,000 a month minimum. Complications with incompetency declaration. Timeline until accounts accessible. She'd been researching how to have me declared incompetent, how to get control of my money, my house, my entire life. The third page was worse. Drug interactions in the elderly avoiding accidental overdose. Almost everything was underlined or circled, especially the section about sedatives and sleeping medications causing respiratory depression and sudden cardiac arrest deaths that would look completely natural in a 66-year-old woman. In the margins, numbers, dosages, time intervals, all in Linda's handwriting. But the last page made me clutch the dresser for support. It was notebook paper lined with progress notes MH written at the top. Below that, a detailed log: March 15, 2023, first dose. No immediate reaction. Subject tired, attributes to age. April 2, 2023, slightly increased dose. Subject complains of mental fog. No suspicion. June 10, 2023, increased compliance. Subject argues less easier to direct. September 3, 2023, episode of unexpected clarity. Subject asking questions about memory, expressing anxiety. Reduced dose temporarily to avoid attention. The entries continued month by month. My life, my confusion, my fears, all carefully documented like a lab experiment. The final entries made my blood run cold. October 1, 2024, need to accelerate. Financial pressure mounting. Subject must be removed before next financial audit. October 10, 2024, prepared concentrated doses for cruise week. Calculation sufficient for final resolution within 48 to 72 hours after intake begins. Natural appearance. Critical. Final resolution. Linda wasn't just poisoning me. She had a specific timeline. A specific week. This week. While she and Edward were on that Alaska cruise surrounded by witnesses and photo opportunities and perfect alibis, I was supposed to die quietly in my own home. An old woman who'd simply gone to sleep and never woken up. "Grandma," Gregory's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" I looked down at him. This brave, brilliant little boy who'd lived in forced silence for 8 years, who'd been threatened and manipulated and turned into a prop for his mother's murder scheme. "I'm alive," I said, my voice hard as steel, "and we're going to make sure it stays that way." That evening, after we'd put the folder back exactly as Gregory had found it, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and pen. Gregory was upstairs taking a bath, a normal 8-year-old activity that now felt miraculous because I could hear him humming. Humming. My grandson could hum, could sing, could do all the things we'd thought were lost to him forever. I pushed those thoughts aside. There would be time for wonder later. Right now I needed to think clearly, to plan. First, I made a list of everything we had. Linda's folder with the research and dosing schedule. The remaining tea bags, evidence of tampering. Gregory's testimony, though, I worried about putting him through that. My own symptoms documented by Edward's medical notes, ironically. Then I made a list of what we needed. Medical proof toxicology tests to show the drugs in my system. Legal advice on how to proceed. Recorded evidence of Linda's intent. The wall clock read 7:45 p.m. Too late to call anyone tonight, but tomorrow morning I would start building our case. Gregory appeared in the doorway, pajamas on, hair damp. "Can I sleep in your room tonight, Grandma?" "Of course, baby." He climbed into my bed while I made phone calls from the kitchen, keeping my voice low. First, my doctor. Dr. Rachel Caldwell had been my physician for 15 years. She answered her emergency line on the 3rd ring. "Dr. Caldwell, it's Melissa Harper." I kept my voice steady. "I need to ask you something important. Could my memory problems be caused by medication?" "Absolutely." Her response was immediate. "Especially at your age, Melissa. Combinations of sleep aids, sedatives, they can create symptoms that look like dementia. Have you been taking something new?" That's just it. I don't think I've been taking what I thought I was taking. A pause. When she spoke again, her voice was serious. Melissa, are you saying you think someone's been giving you medication without your knowledge? Yes. That's attempted poisoning. You need to call the police. I will. But first I need proof. Can you run tests? Come in first thing tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. before the office opens. I'll run a complete tox screen, blood and urine. We'll know exactly what's in your system. She paused. Melissa, are you safe right now? I looked toward my bedroom where Gregory was probably already asleep, finally able to rest without fear. I'm safe, and I'm not alone. Good, I'll see you at 7, and Melissa, document everything. Next, I called Margaret Sterling, my lawyer. She'd handled my will, my property deeds, everything legal for the past 20 years. Melissa, she sounded surprised to hear from me so late. Is everything all right? No, Margaret, it's not. I took a breath. I need to know if someone is systematically giving an elderly person medication without their knowledge what's needed to prove it. The silence that followed was heavy. Melissa, Margaret's voice went from friendly to professional. Do you have specific concerns? More than concerns. Evidence. Then you need 3 things. I could hear her shifting, probably reaching for a notepad. First, medical proof. Toxicology showing drugs in your system that weren't prescribed to you. Second, evidence of intent documents, messages, anything showing the person planned this. And third, ideally recorded admission of guilt. I have the second one already. I'll have the first by tomorrow. The third, I thought about it. Linda usually calls to check on us. Maybe during one of those calls. Recording laws in Oregon allow one-party consent, so if you're part of the conversation, it's legal. Margaret's voice softened. Melissa, I've known you a long time. Whatever's happening, I'm here to help. But if you're in immediate danger, I'm not. Not anymore. I stopped drinking the tea. The tea. It's a long story. Can you be available in the next few days? I may need you quickly. Of course. Call me anytime. After we hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. The house settled around me with familiar creaks and sighs. My house. The house I'd lived in for 35 years, raised Edward and welcomed Gregory into. And Linda wanted to take it all away. Not just the house, my life, my dignity, my final years. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated the love between a grandmother and her grandson. The next morning I woke at 5:30 a.m. Gregory was still asleep beside me, curled around his stuffed elephant. For a moment I just watched him breathe, marveling at the resilience of children. At 6:45 I was in Dr. Caldwell's office. She'd come in early before her staff arrived. The clinic had that strange, empty feeling, lights too bright, everything echoing. Let's get this done quickly, she said, pulling on gloves. I'm running the most comprehensive panel we have. If there are drugs in your system, we'll find them. The needle pinch barely registered. I watched my blood flow into vial after vial, dark red proof that I was still alive, still fighting. How long for results? I asked. I'm marking this urgent. By this afternoon, definitely. She labeled the vials carefully. Melissa, I have to say this. If these tests show what I think they'll show, you need to go to the police immediately. I will. I promise. But I need to do this right. I can't just accuse my daughter-in-law without ironclad proof. Dr. Caldwell studied my face. She's lucky you're more patient than I would be. I drove home slowly, my mind spinning. When I got back, Gregory was awake eating cereal at the kitchen table. He looked up anxiously when I came in. Did you go to the doctor? Yes. We'll know soon if the medicine is still in my blood. He nodded, then pushed something across the table toward me. A small digital voice recorder, the kind students use for lectures. I found this in your desk drawer, he said, for when Mama calls. Smart boy. That evening, right on schedule, my phone rang. Linda. I set the recorder next to the phone and pressed record before answering. Hello, Melissa. Linda's voice was bright, cheerful. How are you and Gregory holding up? I made my voice sound weak, tired. Oh, Linda, we're managing. I'm just so exhausted. Are you drinking the tea, the special one I made? Every morning and evening, just like you said. I paused, adding a slight confusion to my voice. It's very strong this time, isn't it? I made it extra potent. Was that satisfaction in her voice? You need deep rest, Melissa. At your age, proper sleep is critical. I've been so confused lately. This part wasn't acting. Yesterday I couldn't remember what day it was, And sometimes I feel dizzy. That's perfectly normal. She definitely sounded pleased. Progressive decline. The doctors will confirm it when we get back. My fingers tightened on the phone. You've been so good to me, Linda. I don't want to be a burden. You won't be a burden much longer. The words hung in the air, ambiguous enough to deny clear enough for anyone listening. What do you mean? I asked softly. Just that at your age, with your condition progressing, things happen naturally. The important thing is you're comfortable. A pause. You are drinking all the tea, aren't you? Every bag. Every single one. Good. Very good. By the time we get back on Friday, you should be, well rested. We talked for a few more minutes, meaningless pleasantries that made my skin crawl. When I finally hung up, my hands were shaking. Gregory appeared beside me. Did she say enough? More than enough. I checked the recorder. 18 minutes, crystal clear. But it still wasn't the full picture. We had evidence of poisoning of intent, but we didn't have the why, the complete story. Gregory, I said slowly, you mentioned your mom looks at things on the computer. He nodded. She doesn't know I can read, so sometimes she leaves it open. Could you show me where she keeps her files? 20 minutes later, we were looking at Linda's laptop, which she'd left at my house for the week. Gregory knew her password, Gregory888, his own name. The irony wasn't lost on me. He navigated to a hidden folder labeled Project MH, my initials. Inside were dozens of files, research articles, financial spreadsheets, and emails. One email thread made my heart stop, from edward.harper.md@portlandclinic.com to linda.hartwell.harper@gmail.com. Date August 15, 2024, subject RE, timeline adjustment. Linda, I've reviewed the dosage calculations. Increasing to 3x during the cruise week is aggressive, but should achieve the desired outcome within your time frame. I'll ensure the death certificate lists natural causes cardiac event likely related to undiagnosed vascular dementia. As her physician's son, my medical opinion will be unquestioned. I'm still uncomfortable with this, but you're right. We can't afford years of nursing home costs. This is kinder for everyone. EPS. Make sure Gregory is nowhere near when it happens. He can't be traumatized. I read it 3 times. Edward, my son. The boy I'd raised, supported through medical school, been so proud of. He wasn't a victim of Linda's manipulation. He was an active participant, a co-conspirator. He'd calculated the doses that were meant to kill me. Gregory's small hand slipped into mine. I'm sorry, Grandma. About Dad. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. I closed the laptop carefully. But we need to be very, very smart about what happens next. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Caldwell results back. Call me. It's urgent. I dialed with shaking hands. Melissa, Dr. Caldwell's voice was tight with anger. You have dangerous levels of 3 separate medications in your system. Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. Concentrations high enough to cause severe cognitive impairment, respiratory depression, even cardiac arrest. How long could this have been going on? Based on the levels, you haven't taken these drugs for 3 or 4 days. That's why you're suddenly clearer. But before that, regular dosing for months, possibly years. She paused. Melissa, if the doses had continued to increase within days, this could have been fatal. Fatal, the word I'd been avoiding. Linda hadn't just been making me confused or tired. She'd been actively trying to kill me. And this week, this specific week, while she was hundreds of miles away with perfect alibis, was supposed to be the end. Dr. Caldwell, I said quietly, are you willing to testify to all of this? Absolutely. I'm already preparing the documentation. But Melissa, you need to call the police now. I will. Tomorrow. I just need 1 more day to make sure I have everything. After I hung up, I sat with Gregory in my living room. The autumn sun was setting, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. What are we going to do? He asked. I thought about Linda's careful plans, her research, her timeline. The way she'd systematically isolated me made me doubt my own mind, prepared everyone to accept my death as natural. She'd spent 2 years setting up the perfect murder, but she'd made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated both me and the grandson she'd tried to silence. We're going to let them come home, I said. We're going to let them walk in here thinking everything went according to plan, and then we're going to make sure they pay for every single thing they've done. Gregory squeezed my hand. I'm scared. Me too, baby. But we're not alone anymore. You found your voice. Now I'm going to use mine. Outside, the last light faded from the sky. Somewhere in Alaska, Linda and Edward were probably toasting their success, counting down the days until they'd return to find me gone. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The morning after Dr. Caldwell's call, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in 2 years. No fog in my head. No exhaustion pulling at my limbs. Just pure, focused anger. Gregory was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. He looked up when I came in and I saw the question in his eyes. "Today we fight back," I said simply. He nodded suddenly, looking much older than 8 years old. "I made coffee. Real coffee, not the decaf Linda always insisted I should drink." The bitterness tasted like freedom. While it brewed, I opened my laptop and started making lists. Evidence we had. Toxicology report from Dr. Caldwell. Linda's research folder. Progress notes in her handwriting. Email thread between Linda and Edward. Voice recording from yesterday's phone call. The remaining tea bags still untouched. Gregory's testimony. Evidence we needed. Official police documentation. Legal protection for Gregory. Recorded confession from Linda in person. Witness to their return. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd hoped never to use. Portland Police non-emergency line. "I need to speak with someone about attempted murder." My voice was steady, calm. "Of an elderly person by family members." There was a pause. "Ma'am, can you hold for Detective Morrison?" 3 minutes later, a woman's voice came on the line. "This is Detective Sarah Morrison, Elder Abuse and Financial Crimes Unit. You reported attempted murder." "Yes. My daughter-in-law has been poisoning me for approximately 2 years. I have medical evidence documentation of intent and recorded conversations." Another pause. This one longer. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Melissa Harper. I'm 66 years old. I live at 2847 Maple Street in the Eastmoreland neighborhood." "And where is your daughter-in-law now?" "On an Alaska cruise with my son. They return Friday afternoon. That's in 3 days." "Ms. Harper, if you have evidence of active poisoning, we need to send officers to your location immediately." "No." I kept my voice firm. "I stopped taking the poisoned substances 5 days ago. I'm clear-headed and safe. But I need to do this right, Detective Morrison. I need them to confess. I need my grandson to be protected. And I need this to be ironclad so they can't wriggle out of it." The detective was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her tone had changed, more respectful, more interested. "You said you have documentation. Extensive documentation. Including emails between my son and daughter-in-law discussing dosages and timelines. My son is a physician. He calculated the medications meant to kill me." I heard typing in the background. "I'm going to need to see all of this. Can you come to the station? Can you come here? I have my grandson with me. He's 8 years old, and he's been forced to pretend he's nonverbal for 3 years because his mother threatened him." I paused. "He's the one who saved my life." More typing. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't touch any of the evidence. And Ms. Harper, you did the right thing calling us." Detective Sarah Morrison was 50-something with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. She wore jeans and a blazer, and her eyes were the kind that had seen too much but still cared. She sat at my kitchen table with Gregory and me, laying out everything we had. The folder, the emails, the tea bags and evidence bags I'd carefully prepared. The voice recording played through my phone speaker. When Linda's voice said, "You won't be a burden much longer," Detective Morrison's jaw tightened. "How old did you say your grandson is?" she asked. 8, I replied. She looked at Gregory, who sat very still beside me. "And you've been pretending you couldn't talk?" Gregory nodded. "Can you tell me why?" He glanced at me. I squeezed his hand. "It's okay, baby. Tell her. Mama said if I ever talked, she'd send me to a hospital where they'd make me sleep forever and everyone would forget about me." His voice was quiet but clear. She showed me pictures of places with bars on the windows. Detective Morrison's expression went cold. "That's psychological abuse of a minor, combined with the elder abuse and attempted murder." She pulled out a notepad. "Ms. Harper, I need to ask you something. What do you want to happen here?" "I'd been thinking about this all morning. I want them arrested. Both of them. I want charges that will stick. And I want my grandson protected." I looked at Gregory. "He's been through enough. Whatever happens, he doesn't testify in front of them. He doesn't face his mother in court unless he chooses to. We can arrange that. We have victim advocates, child psychologists. Detective Morrison tapped her pen against the notepad. But I have to be honest with you. What you're describing this is complex. Conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, child endangerment, possible fraud if they were planning to claim your assets. She looked up. I want to make sure we get everything. Every charge, every piece of evidence. Then I have a proposal, I said. Let them come home. Let them walk into this house thinking I'm dead or dying. Let them show their hand completely, and you can be here to witness it. Detective Morrison studied me. That's risky. If something goes wrong, I'll have a police detective in my house. What could go wrong? A slow smile crossed her face. You know what I like you, Ms. Harper. You've got steel in you. She stood up. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm taking all this evidence and getting it documented officially. Photographs, chain of custody, the works. The tea bags go to our lab for analysis. I'm also going to contact Dr. Caldwell and get her report. What about Friday? I asked. Friday, I'll be in an unmarked car outside your house. You'll wear a wire. When they arrive and you've gotten enough confession on tape, you'll give me a signal and we come in. She looked at Gregory. But you, young man, will be in a safe location. Child Services will arrange temporary protective custody. No. Gregory's voice was sharp. I'm staying with Grandma. Sweetheart, I started. No. He looked at me with fierce determination. I was quiet for 3 years because of Mama. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm staying with you. Detective Morrison and I exchanged glances. He can be upstairs, the detective said slowly, in a locked room with an officer, close enough to feel safe, far enough to be protected. Would that work? Gregory considered this, then nodded. Brave kid, Morrison said softly. She handed me her card. Call me if anything changes. If they come home early, if they contact you anything, day or night. After she left, I sat with Gregory on my back porch. The October air was crisp leaves turning gold and red in my small yard. Are you scared? He asked. Terrified, I admitted. But being scared doesn't mean we stop. It just means we're doing something important. He leaned against me. Grandma, after this is over, what happens to me? My heart clenched. I'd been avoiding this question. I don't know yet, baby, but I promise you whatever happens, I'll fight for you. You'll never have to Wednesday morning. 2 days until Edward and Linda came home. My phone rang at 9 a.m. Linda. I let it ring 3 times before answering, remembering Detective Morrison's instructions. Act normal. Sound weak. Give them no reason to suspect. Hello? I made my voice thin, uncertain. Melissa, it's Linda. I'm just checking in. How are you feeling? The background noise suggested she was outside wind, seagull cries, ship sounds. I pictured her on the deck of that luxury cruise liner, cocktail in hand, checking to see if I was dead yet. Very tired, I said, adding a slight slur to my words. The tea. It's very strong. Are you drinking at all? Eagerness sharpened her voice. Morning and evening, like you said. I paused, breathing heavily into the phone. But Linda, I keep forgetting things. Yesterday I couldn't remember Gregory's name. Silence on the other end. Then, that's perfectly normal, Melissa. At your age, with your condition, it's expected. Your condition. The condition she'd created with months of systematic poisoning. Will you be home soon? I let my voice crack. I'm not sure I can. Just 2 more days, Melissa. We'll be home Friday afternoon. Can you manage until then? Can I manage to stay alive until you come home to find me dead? I'll try, I whispered. Good. That's good. Just rest. Drink your tea. Everything will be all right soon. Everything will be over soon, she meant. After I hung up, I found Gregory in the living room. He'd set up his action figures in an elaborate battle scene, good guys versus bad guys. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. She's still pretending to care, he said without looking up. People who do bad things are usually very good at pretending, I replied. That's what makes them dangerous. That afternoon I did something I'd been putting off. I called my lawyer, Margaret Sterling, and asked her to come over. She arrived within an hour, briefcase in hand, concern etched on her face. I'd known Margaret for 20 years. She'd handled my divorce from Edward's father, my will, the trust fund I'd set up for Gregory's education. Melissa, she hugged me tightly. I've been worried sick since our call. I introduced her to Gregory, the real Gregory, who shook her hand politely and said, "Nice to meet you, Ms. Sterling." Margaret's eyes widened. I thought, so did everyone. I gestured to the couch. We have a lot to tell you. For the next hour, I explained everything. Margaret listened without interrupting, taking notes in her precise lawyer handwriting. When I finished, she sat back and removed her glasses. She shook her head. I've handled estate disputes, family conflicts, but this is attempted murder, multiple felonies. I know, Detective Morrison is handling the criminal side, but I need you for something else. Name it. Gregory. If Edward and Linda both go to prison, I want immediate emergency custody. No foster care, no group homes. He stays with me. Margaret nodded slowly. Given the circumstances, documented abuse, your existing relationship as his grandmother, that's achievable. I'll file the paperwork tomorrow. We can get a hearing within days of the arrests. And my will, I continued, I want it changed. Nothing for Edward. Everything goes to Gregory with you as trustee until he's 25. Melissa, you don't have to decide that now. Yes, I do. My voice was firm. Edward calculated the doses meant to kill me. He doesn't get to benefit from my death, attempted or otherwise. Margaret was quiet for a moment. I'll draft new documents tonight. You can sign them tomorrow with witnesses. After she left, I found Gregory sitting on my back porch steps, throwing pebbles at nothing in particular. Your dad called, he said without turning around. While you were talking to Ms. Sterling, I let it go to voicemail. I sat beside him. Do you want to hear it? He shook his head. I heard him talking to Mama last night, through the phone. She had him on speaker. His voice was very small. He said he hoped it would be peaceful, that you wouldn't suffer. My chest tightened. Edward had always been weak, but I'd never imagined him capable of this, of planning his own mother's death and calling it mercy. Gregory, I need you to understand something. I turned him to face me. What your father did, what both your parents did, that's not your fault. Not in any way. But he's my dad, and she's my mom. Doesn't that make me... He struggled with the words. Bad, too. No, I cupped his face in my hands. You're the one who warned me. You're the one who saved my life. You're the bravest person I know. He threw his arms around my neck and cried deep, gulping sobs of a child who'd held in too much for too long. I held him and let him weep my own tears, falling silent. Thursday, 1 day left. Detective Morrison came by in the morning with a technician who installed a small camera in my living room clock and gave me a wire to wear a tiny microphone that clipped inside my cardigan. Test, test, I said, feeling ridiculous. In the van outside, Morrison's voice came through a small earpiece, clear as crystal. Ms. Harper. They also gave me a panic button disguised as a medical alert pendant. One press and officers would storm the house. I won't need it, I said. Humor me, Morrison replied. Gregory watched all of this with wide eyes. The child psychologist Morrison had brought a kind woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, sat with him explaining what would happen the next day. You'll be upstairs in your room with Officer Brooks, Dr. Chen said gently. The door will be locked from the inside. You'll have a phone and you can hear everything through this. She showed him a small radio receiver. If at any point you feel scared, Officer Brooks will take you out the back door. You'll be completely safe. What about Grandma? Gregory asked. Your grandmother will have 5 police officers within 50 feet of her at all times. I promise you she's not in danger. After they left, I made lunch for Gregory and myself. Grilled cheese again. It had become our comfort food. Tomorrow, Gregory said, pushing his sandwich around his plate. What do you think will happen? I'd been thinking about this constantly. They'll come home expecting to find me very sick, probably unconscious. Or... I didn't finish that sentence. Linda will check for signs that her plan worked. She'll be confident. Maybe too confident. And then I'll show her that I know everything. I'll make her admit what she did. And Detective Morrison will arrest them both. It sounded simple when I said it out loud, but I knew it wouldn't be simple at all. That afternoon, I did something that surprised even myself. I took out old photo albums and looked through pictures of Edward as a child. There he was at 5, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a drawing he'd made for me. At 10, in his Little League uniform, so proud when I came to every game. At 18, graduating high school, hugging me and saying, I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. When had he changed? Or had he always been capable of this, and I just refused to see it? Gregory found me their photos spread across the dining room table. "That's Dad," he said, pointing to a picture of Edward at about Gregory's current age. "He looks happy." He was happy. I touched the photo gently. I thought I raised him right. I thought I taught him about kindness and integrity and family. "You did teach him," Gregory said quietly. He just chose not to remember. Out of the mouths of babes. That evening, Margaret returned with new will documents. We signed them at my kitchen table with 2 witnesses, Margaret's paralegal and my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who'd known me for 30 years. "Everything to Gregory," Margaret confirmed. "Your house, your savings, your life insurance. The trust is structured so he'll have access to funds for education and living expenses with you as primary guardian and me as backup trustee." Mrs. Patterson, who didn't know the full story, patted my hand. "That grandson of yours is lucky to have you." If she only knew how true that was. After everyone left, I sat with Gregory in his room, the guest room that had become his sanctuary. "Tell me again what you do tomorrow," I said. He recited it like a well-learned lesson. "When Mama and Daddy arrive, I pretend like always. No talking, no eye contact. I play with my toys. When you say, 'Gregory, go get Grandma some water,' that's the signal. I go upstairs and Officer Brooks locks the door. I put on the headphones so I can hear what happens. If anything goes wrong, Officer Brooks takes me out the back door." "Good." I kissed his forehead. "And remember, no matter what you hear, I'm going to be fine." "Promise." I thought about making a promise I couldn't guarantee, but Gregory deserved honesty. "I promise I'll do everything I can to stay safe, and I promise that after tomorrow you'll never have to pretend to be someone you're not, ever again." He seemed satisfied with that. Friday morning dawned cold and gray, fitting weather for a confrontation. I dressed carefully, my blue cardigan, the one Edward had given me for my birthday 2 years ago. The irony of wearing his gift to his arrest wasn't lost on me. The wire was clipped inside the cardigan. The panic button hung around my neck. In my pocket, my phone was set to record. Detective Morrison arrived at 10 a.m. in an unmarked sedan. 2 more plainclothes officers set up in a van down the street. Officer Brooks, a young woman with kind eyes and a competent manner, positioned herself upstairs in Gregory's room. "Their flight lands at 1:30, Morrison said, checking her phone. "With traffic from the airport, they should be here by 3 p.m. Gregory sat on the couch setting up his action figures exactly as he would have any other day. But his hands shook slightly, and I saw him glance repeatedly at the stairs where Officer Brooks waited. "You've got this," I told him. "Both of us do." At 2:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Edward Landing now. "Home in 45 minutes. How are you and Gregory?" I typed back with shaking fingers. "Very tired. We'll be glad when you're home. Let him think everything went according to plan. Let them both think they'd won." Detective Morrison's voice came through my earpiece. "We're ready when you are, Ms. Harper. Remember, get them talking. Get them to admit what they did. We need clear verbal confession for the charges to stick." "Understood." At 3:20 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway. My heart began to pound so hard I thought surely everyone could hear it. Gregory looked at me, his eyes wide with fear. "It's going to be okay," I mouthed to him. The car doors slammed. Footsteps on the walkway. The sound of a key in the lock. The front door opened. Linda walked in first, pulling a small suitcase. She looked tanned, relaxed, beautiful in her expensive travel clothes. Edward followed behind her, carrying larger bags. For just a moment, one brief flickering moment, I saw my son's face light up when he saw me sitting in my armchair. Then Linda saw me, too. Her expression went through several rapid changes. Surprise, confusion, then something darker, calculation, because I was sitting up, alert, looking directly at her with clear, focused eyes. I wasn't supposed to be able to do that. "Melissa," Linda's voice was carefully controlled. You look well." "Do I?" I asked pleasantly. "That's funny, because you told me over the phone that by the time you got home I'd be well rested." I watched her face go pale, watched Edward freeze in the doorway. "Mom, what?" Edward started. "What did I mean?" I finished for him. I stood up and I felt years of being underestimated, dismissed, and nearly murdered flow into my voice. "I think you both know exactly what she meant." Linda's eyes darted around the room looking for Gregory, I realized. looking for the only witness to whatever she might say next. "Where's Gregory?" she asked sharply. "Safe," I replied. "Unlike me, unlike the grandmother you've been slowly poisoning for 2 years." The silence that followed was deafening. "That's—" Linda's voice faltered. "That's absurd. Your memory problems, they're age-related. The doctors said what Edward told them to say." I pulled out my phone. "Funny thing about email, Linda. Once you send it, it exists forever. Want to hear what my son wrote to you about increasing my dosage?" Edward's face crumbled. "Mom, please let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice cut like glass. "Explain how you calculated the exact combination of drugs to kill me. Explain how you planned to sign my death certificate listing natural causes. Explain how you decided your own mother's life was worth less than avoiding nursing home costs." "It wasn't like that," Linda said, but her voice had lost its honey sweetness. Now it was hard, defensive. "You were declining anyway. We were just helping things along, making it easier for everyone, helping things along." I repeated her words. "Is that what you call attempted murder now?" "It wasn't murder." Linda's control snapped. "You were going to die anyway. Old confused a burden to everyone. We just sped up the inevitable, and we would have been kind about it, given you a peaceful death instead of years of suffering." "How generous of you," I said coldly, "to decide when I should die." "Someone had to decide," Linda was shouting now. "You were already falling apart, forgetting things, getting confused. That was real, Melissa. We just enhanced it a little, made sure things moved in the right direction." "The right direction." Edward's voice was hollow. He'd sunk onto the couch, head in his hands. "God, Linda, listen to yourself." "Don't you dare," Linda rounded on him. "Don't you dare act innocent. You calculated every dose, you researched every drug interaction. You told me exactly how much to use and when." "I know." Edward looked up and I saw tears on his face. "I know what I did. I know what we did. And I'll have to live with it for the rest of my life. But at least I feel guilty. You're still trying to justify it." "Because it was justified." Linda's voice had gone shrill. "Your mother has a house worth $800,000. She has savings insurance, a trust fund for Gregory. And she was just sitting on it, all getting older, getting sicker when you needed, Edward interrupted. "I never needed any of this." "Oh, please." Linda's laugh was bitter. "You went along with every step. The first dose, the increased dosages, the final push this week. You knew exactly what was happening. You're just as guilty as I am." "Yes." Edward's voice broke. "I am." The admission hung in the air. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not just weakness, not just cowardice, but genuine remorse, genuine horror at what he'd become. "Edward," I said quietly, "did you want me to die?" He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "No, God, no. Linda kept saying how expensive everything was, how you were suffering, how it would be kinder. And I convinced myself she was right. I convinced myself I was being merciful." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But I knew. Deep down I knew it was wrong. And I did it anyway." "So touching," Linda sneered. "Your guilt doesn't change anything. What's done is done." "Actually," I said, "nothing is done, because I didn't drink your tea, Linda. I haven't drunk it for 5 days. Thanks to someone who cared enough to warn me." Linda's eyes went wide. "Gregory," she said his name like a curse. "That little he told you, Gregory saved me." My voice could have frozen fire. "The grandson you've abused and terrorized and used as a prop for your schemes. The child you forced into silence through threats and manipulation. He found his voice just in time to save my life." "Where is he?" Linda's voice went cold. "Where's my son?" "Not your son anymore," I said. "Not after what you did to him. You can't take him from me." "Oh, I think I can." I pulled out the evidence folder, Linda's own research, her notes, the documented dosages. "I think Child Protective Services will be very interested in a mother who threatens her 5-year-old with institutionalization, who forces him to fake a disability for years, who uses him as part of a murder plot." Linda's face went white with rage. "You vindictive old—" She lunged toward me. I pressed the panic button. 3 seconds later, my front door burst open. Detective Morrison strode in, badge held high, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Linda Hartwell Harper, Edward Harper, you're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, elder abuse, and child endangerment. Morrison's voice was professionally cold. You have the right to remain silent. The rest happened in a blur. Handcuffs, Miranda rights, Linda screaming about lawyers and false accusations, Edward silent, accepting broken. I stood in my living room and watched my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved, be led away in handcuffs. And upstairs I heard a door open and small footsteps on the stairs. Gregory appeared, Officer Brooks beside him. He looked at his parents in handcuffs, looked at me, and then ran across the room into my arms. It's over, I whispered into his hair. It's finally over. The police cruisers pulled away from my house at 4:37 p.m., taking Edward and Linda with them. I watched through my living room window as my neighbors emerged onto their porches, phones out, whispering to each other. Mrs. Patterson from next door hurried over before I could close my door. Melissa, dear God, what happened? Are you all right? I looked at her kind, worried face and felt something inside me crack open. I'm alive, Dorothy. That's what matters. She gripped my hands. I saw the police. I saw Edward in handcuffs. Her voice dropped. What did they do? They tried to kill me. Saying it out loud to someone outside the investigation made it real in a way it hadn't been before. For 2 years they poisoned me, and they would have succeeded if it wasn't for Gregory. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. That beautiful boy, where is he? Upstairs with the social worker. And that was the next nightmare I had to face. Detective Morrison sat at my kitchen table with a woman named Amanda Pierce from Child Protective Services. Gregory sat between them, very small, very quiet. Ms. Harper, Amanda said gently. She was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes that had seen too much. I need to explain what happens next. Given the severity of the charges against both parents, Gregory cannot remain in their custody. The question is where he goes while this is sorted out. My hands clenched on the table. He stays with me. I'm his grandmother. I have the space, the means, and he's comfortable here. I understand that. But protocol requires a home study, background checks, psychological evaluation. How long? My voice was sharper than I intended. Amanda looked uncomfortable. Normally 4 to 6 weeks, but given the circumstances, she glanced at Detective Morrison. Morrison cleared her throat. I've already called Judge Patricia Reeves. She's the family court judge who handles emergency custody cases. Given Ms. Harper's role in stopping an active crime against her own person, and given Gregory's expressed wishes, the judge has agreed to an emergency hearing tomorrow morning. If it goes well, temporary custody can be granted immediately. Tomorrow morning. 1 night. I could keep him safe for 1 night. Where does he stay tonight? I asked. Amanda looked at Gregory, then at me. Technically, he should go to a temporary foster placement. No. Gregory's voice was small but firm. I stay with Grandma. Sweetheart, it's just procedure. I said no. He looked up at Amanda with those 2 old eyes. I was quiet for 3 years because Mama made me scared. I'm not being quiet anymore. I'm staying with Grandma. Amanda and Morrison exchanged glances. I'll take full responsibility, I said. Officer Brooks can stay if needed, but he doesn't leave this house tonight. After a long moment, Amanda nodded. Just tonight. But Ms. Harper, if anything changes, if you feel unsafe or uncertain. I won't. After everyone left the house, felt unnaturally quiet. Gregory and I sat in the kitchen, neither of us quite sure what to do with the sudden absence of fear. Are you hungry? I asked finally. He shook his head. Grandma, what happens to Mama and Daddy? I'd been dreading this question. There will be a trial. They'll have lawyers. A judge will decide their punishment. Will they go to jail? Probably. Yes. He absorbed this quietly. For how long? I don't know exactly, but a long time. Good. His voice was hard, and it broke my heart to hear that hardness in an 8-year-old. They tried to kill you. I know, baby. I don't want to see them, ever again. I pulled him close. You don't have to. Not if you don't want to. That's your choice. We sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, while the October darkness fell outside. That night, Gregory had nightmares. I heard him crying out around 2 a.m. and rushed to his room. He was tangled in his sheets, tears streaming down his face. Mama's here, he sobbed. She's here and she's angry and she's taking me away. Shh. I'm here. You're safe. I gathered him into my arms. Your mama is in jail. She can't hurt you. She can't hurt either of us anymore. But what if they let her out? What if she comes back? They won't. I promise you, Gregory. The police have all the evidence. They know what she did. She's not coming back. But he couldn't settle. Finally, I did what I used to do when Edward was small, and afraid I brought Gregory to my bed, tucked him in beside me, and sang him the old lullabies my mother had sung to me. Hush, little baby, don't say a word, Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Except his mama had stolen his words, had threatened and manipulated and broken something essential in him. But we would fix it. Somehow we would fix it. The emergency custody hearing was held in Judge Patricia Reeves' chambers the next morning. It was small, informal, nothing like the TV courtrooms I'd imagined. Judge Reeves was 60-something with steel gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She looked over the paperwork Margaret Sterling had prepared, then looked at Gregory. "Young man," she said gently, "I understand you've been through something very difficult. Can you tell me where you want to live?" Gregory looked at me, then back at the judge. "With Grandma. She's the only one who's safe." "Safe is important." Judge Reeves made a note. "What about your parents? Do you want to see them?" "No." His voice was firm. "They're not safe. Mama hurt Grandma and made me lie for years, and Daddy helped her." The judge's expression softened. "I've read the police reports. What happened to you was wrong. Very wrong." She looked at me. "Ms. Harper, you understand that this is temporary custody pending the criminal trial and full custody proceedings." "I understand." "And you're prepared to provide a stable, safe home for your grandson, to get him counseling, ensure his education, all of it?" "Absolutely." Judge Reeves signed the papers with a firm hand. "Temporary custody granted to Melissa Harper, effective immediately. Full hearing in 90 days. She looked at Gregory again. "You're going to be okay, son. You were very brave." Walking out of that courthouse with legal custody papers in my hand felt like the first real breath I'd taken in days. The criminal proceedings moved faster than I expected. With Gregory's testimony, the emails, the medical evidence, Linda's recorded confessions, and Edward's breakdown during his police interview, the district attorney's office had what they called an airtight case. Both Edward and Linda were denied bail flight risk, the judge ruled, given the severity of charges and the financial motive. 3 weeks after their arrest, their lawyers approached the DA with a plea deal. Margaret called me on a Tuesday afternoon to explain. "Linda is refusing to plead guilty. She wants a trial. But Edward," she paused, "Edward is willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence and cooperation against Linda." "What does that mean, reduced sentence?" "Instead of 25 to life, he'd get 15 years with possibility of parole after 10. 15 years. My son would be 53 when he got out. Gregory would be 23. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. "That's not my decision, Melissa. But the DA wants to know if you'll support the plea deal. Your victim impact statement carries weight." I thought about Edward's face when the police arrived. The genuine horror. The remorse that seemed real even if it came too late. "I'll support it," I said finally. "But only if he testifies against Linda, and only if he gives up all parental rights to Gregory." "Done," Margaret said. "I'll let them know." Linda's trial began 6 months after the arrests. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Rachel Brennan, a fierce woman in her 40s who'd made her career on elder abuse cases. She told me before the trial started, "I'm going to bury her, Melissa. I promise you that." I wasn't required to attend every day, but I went anyway, sat in the gallery and watched as they dismantled Linda's life piece by piece. Day 1 medical testimony. Dr. Caldwell explained in precise detail the drugs found in my system and their effects. "These concentrations would have been fatal within days," she told the jury. Ms. Harper was being actively murdered. Day 2, financial evidence. Forensic accountants showed Linda's spending habits: $60,000 in credit card debt, designer clothes, spa treatments, expensive restaurants. All on borrowed money while she plotted to inherit my house and savings. Day 3, the emails. Edward's messages to Linda were read aloud in court. The jury's faces turned to stone as they heard my own son discuss dosages and timelines for my death. Day 4, Edward testified. They led him in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. He looked thinner, older, hollowed out. When he saw me in the gallery, his eyes filled with tears. D.A. Brennan was merciless in her questioning. "Dr. Harper, you calculated the drug dosages that were used to poison your mother, correct?" "Yes." Edward's voice was barely audible. "And you knew these dosages could be fatal?" "Yes." "Did your mother consent to taking these medications?" "No." "Did she know she was being poisoned?" "No." "Why did you do it?" Edward looked at me then. "Linda convinced me it was mercy, that my mother was suffering, that this was kinder than letting her decline slowly. She said we couldn't afford nursing care, that Mom would want to go peacefully." His voice broke. "I convinced myself it was true because it was easier than admitting I was murdering my own mother for money." The courtroom was dead silent. "Do you regret it?" Brennan asked. "Every second of every day." Tears ran down Edward's face. "I betrayed the woman who raised me, who loved me unconditionally, who never deserved any of this. I don't expect forgiveness. I want to make sure Linda pays for what she convinced me to do." Linda's lawyer objected, "Leading the witness, Your Honor," but the damage was done. Day 5, Gregory testified. I'd fought against it, but the prosecution insisted. "His testimony is crucial," Brennan explained. "It shows pattern of abuse, shows Linda's character, shows she's willing to harm anyone who threatens her plans." Dr. Chen, the child psychologist, worked with Gregory for weeks. They set up the courtroom so he didn't have to face Linda directly. A screen blocked his view of the defense table. I sat in the front row where he could see me. Judge Reeves spoke to him gently. "Gregory, you understand you need to tell the truth today." "Yes, ma'am." "Even if the truth is hard." "Yes." Brennan stood. "Gregory, can you tell us what happened when you were 5 years old?" And Gregory told them. About accidentally speaking in front of the doctor. About Linda locking him in the bathroom and threatening him. About the pictures of hospitals with bars on windows. About 3 years of forced silence. "Did you want to tell people you could talk?" Brennan asked. "Yes. But I was scared Mama would make me disappear. She said nobody would believe me anyway because I was autistic." "How did it make you feel to pretend for so long?" Gregory thought about this. "Alone. Like I was invisible even though everyone could see me." I watched the jury. Every single one was crying. Linda's lawyer tried to discredit him on cross-examination. "Isn't it true, Gregory, that you have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder?" "I had a fake diagnosis," Gregory corrected. "Mama made me act autistic so nobody would believe me if I told the truth." "That's a very serious accusation." "It's true." Gregory's voice was steady. "I can read. I can write. I'm in 3rd grade now, and my teacher says I'm reading at 6th grade level. I was never autistic. Mama just needed me to be." The lawyer had no response to that. Day 8, closing arguments. D.A. Brennan stood before the jury and painted the complete picture. Linda Hartwell Harper is not just a murderer. She's a manipulator who poisoned her mother-in-law for 2 years, who psychologically abused her own son for 3 years, who researched and planned and executed a scheme to inherit $800,000 through murder. She held up the yellow folder. These are her notes, her research, her timeline for killing Melissa Harper. This wasn't passion. This wasn't an accident. This was cold, calculated, premeditated murder. Linda's lawyer argued diminished capacity, claimed Edward had manipulated Linda, suggested the evidence was circumstantial. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict guilty on all counts. 6 months after the trial, I stood in my kitchen making pancakes for Gregory's 9th birthday. The house smelled like butter and maple syrup and coffee. Normal smells, weekend smells, the smells of a life rebuilt from ashes. "Grandma!" Gregory thundered down the stairs, wearing the new clothes we'd bought together last week. Real clothes for a real boy going to a real school. "Can Tommy come over today?" Tommy was his best friend from school, a rambunctious kid who talked constantly and thought Gregory was the coolest person alive. "After lunch," I said. "But this morning is just us okay birthday tradition." We'd established new traditions over the past months. Birthday breakfasts, movie nights on Fridays, Sunday afternoon walks in the park, normal family things that felt miraculous after everything. Gregory hugged me from behind. "Thanks, Grandma." "For what, everything?" Linda was sentenced to 25 years without possibility of parole. The judge had been clear. You preyed on someone who trusted you. You manipulated your own child. You showed no remorse even when caught. You will spend a significant portion of your remaining life in prison. I attended the sentencing. Linda didn't look at me once. Edward was already serving his 15-year sentence at Oregon State Penitentiary. He'd written me 3 times. I hadn't opened the letters. I'd given them to Margaret to hold. Maybe someday Gregory would want to read them, maybe not. That was his choice. Some wounds were too deep for quick forgiveness. "Grandma, Dr. Chen is here," Gregory called from the living room. Dr. Chen still came once a week for therapy sessions. At first, they'd been about trauma, about processing what Linda had done, about the fear and silence and confusion. But lately, they'd shifted to something healthier, to identity, to figuring out who Gregory was when he wasn't performing or hiding or surviving. "He's doing remarkably well," Dr. Chen told me after today's session. "The resilience in that kid is extraordinary." "He's had to be resilient," I said. "True, but what's important now is he doesn't have to be anymore. He can just be a kid." Through the window, I watched Gregory playing in the yard with Tommy, both boys covered in mud and laughing. A normal, messy, beautiful childhood scene. "He's getting there," I said. That evening, after Tommy went home and Gregory was in the bath, my phone rang. "Mrs. Patterson." "Melissa, turn on Channel 8. I switched on the TV. A news segment, "Elder Abuse on the Rise, How One Portland Grandmother's Courage Exposed a Deadly Plot." They interviewed Detective Morrison, who explained the case without using our names. Then Dr. Caldwell talking about the medical signs of poisoning. Then, to my surprise, me. I'd done an interview a month ago with a local reporter. I'd almost forgotten about it. There I was on screen, looking older than I remembered, but strong. Alive. "I want people to know," my TV self said, "that if something feels wrong, trust that feeling." I thought I was just getting old. But it was more than that. And if my grandson hadn't found his voice, I wouldn't be here today. The segment ended with resources for elder abuse victims. Hotlines, support groups, legal aid. My phone started buzzing. Text messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Neighbors, old friends, all saying the same thing. "You're so brave. Thank you for speaking out." I wasn't sure I felt brave. Mostly I felt grateful to be alive. A week later, Margaret called with news. The state is filing a civil suit against Linda's assets to recoup the costs of prosecution. But more importantly, there's a fund. What kind of fund? A victims' compensation fund for elder abuse cases. Between that and the restitution the judge ordered, you're looking at about $75,000. I sat down heavily. I didn't expect. Take it, Melissa. Use it for Gregory, for therapy, for his education, for whatever you both need to heal. That money became Gregory's college fund. But more than that, it became possibility. The possibility of a future we'd almost lost. 3 months after his 9th birthday, Gregory came home from school with a flyer. "Grandma, look, they're doing a play at school. Peter Pan. Auditions are next week." I looked at the paper. "Do you want to try out?" He bit his lip. "I think so. I've been quiet for so long. But Dr. Chen says maybe acting would be good. Like using my voice on purpose instead of hiding it." "Then you should absolutely audition." He did, and he got the part of John Darling Wendy's brother. Opening night, I sat in the audience of that elementary school auditorium and watched my grandson, who'd been silent for 3 years, speak lines on stage. Loudly, confidently, joyfully. When he delivered his final line and the curtain fell, I cried harder than I had during the entire ordeal. These were different tears. These were healing tears. 1 year after the arrests, on a crisp October morning, Gregory and I visited a lawyer's office for the final custody hearing. Judge Reeves reviewed all the documentation. The therapy reports showing Gregory's progress. The school records showing his academic success. The home study showing our stable, loving environment. "Ms. Harper," she said, "I see no reason to change the current arrangement. Permanent custody is granted. Gregory will remain with you until he reaches adulthood." Permanent, the most beautiful word I'd ever heard. In the hallway afterward, Gregory hugged me tight. "We did it, Grandma. We really did it." "We did, baby. We really did." That evening, we sat on the back porch as the sun set. Gregory was doing homework, real homework, not pretending he couldn't read. I was reading a mystery novel. Normal, peaceful, safe. "Grandma," Gregory looked up from his math worksheet. "Do you ever think about Mama and Daddy? Sometimes, I admitted. Do you? Yeah. Mostly I think about how Daddy used to read me stories before bed, before everything got bad. He was quiet for a moment. Do you think people can change? Like really change? I thought about Edward's letters still unopened, about Linda in prison still maintaining her innocence, about second chances and redemption and forgiveness. I think some people can, I said carefully, if they really want to, if they do the hard work. But even if they change, that doesn't erase what they did. So you won't forgive them? I don't know yet. Forgiveness isn't something you decide once. It's something you work toward. Maybe someday I'll get there. Maybe not. I looked at him. What about you? He considered this seriously. I think I'll forgive them for me, not for them. Because Dr. Chen says holding on to anger just hurts me, not them. But forgiving doesn't mean I want them back in my life. 9 years old and already wiser than most adults I knew. 2 years after that October morning when Gregory first spoke, we celebrated Thanksgiving together. It was a small gathering, Margaret and her wife, Dr. Chen, and her husband, Detective Morris and Mrs. Patterson from next door, the people who'd helped us survive and rebuild. As we sat around the table, Margaret raised her glass. A toast to Melissa, who refused to be a victim, to Gregory, who found his voice, and to second chances. To second chances, everyone echoed. But I added something. And to first chances, because this feels like the first real life I've had in years. After dinner, while the adults cleaned up, I found Gregory outside looking at the stars. You okay, kiddo? Just thinking. 2 years ago, I was so scared all the time. I thought Mama would send me away. I thought you were going to die. I thought everything was going to be terrible forever. And now? He smiled that pure, unguarded smile of a child who felt safe. Now I have friends, and a grandma who loves me, and I can talk whenever I want. I can be loud. I can be me. You can be exactly who you are, I agreed. Always. We stood there together under the stars, and I thought about everything we'd survived. The poison, the lies, the fear, the trial. But we'd survived it. More than that, we'd rebuilt something stronger. Gregory graduated 8th grade as valedictorian. At 13, he stood on stage and delivered a speech about resilience, about finding your voice, about the people who save us. 5 years ago, he said I couldn't speak, not because I couldn't, but because I was afraid. Someone I was supposed to trust had taken my voice away. But my grandmother gave it back to me. She showed me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you are scared. He looked at me in the audience. Grandma, thank you for teaching me that my voice matters, that I matter, and thank you for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. The auditorium erupted in applause. Afterward, as we walked to the car, Gregory said, "You know what's weird? I'm grateful." For what? For all of it. I mean, I wish it hadn't happened, but it taught me something important. He paused, choosing his words carefully. It taught me that I'm stronger than I think, that you're stronger than anyone thinks, and that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up for you when everything falls apart. I hugged him tight. This boy who'd been silent for 3 years, this young man who'd found his voice and was using it to make the world a little bit better. I'm proud of you, I whispered. Every single day I'm proud of you. Right back at you, Grandma. That night I finally opened Edward's letters. There were 17 of them now, sent over 5 years. I read them all in one sitting. The first ones were defensive, full of excuses and justifications. But as the years progressed, they changed, became more honest, more raw. The most recent one, sent just last month, said, "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I want you to know that I finally understand what I did. Not just the crime, but the betrayal. You gave me everything, and I repaid you with poison. I'm glad you survived. I'm glad Gregory is with you. He writes to me sometimes, did you know that? He tells me about school, about his friends, about his life. He's careful not to hurt me, even though I hurt him terribly. That's your influence. You raised him better than I deserved. I have 5 years left on my sentence. When I get out, I don't expect to see you. I don't expect anything. But I want you to know that every day I work to become someone who deserves to be called your son again. Even if I never get there, I'll keep trying. I love you. I'm sorry. And thank you for saving Gregory. Edward, I folded the letter carefully and put it back in its envelope. Maybe someday I'd write back. Maybe someday we'd have a conversation. Maybe not. But at least now I knew some people could change. Whether that change earned forgiveness was a question for another day. My name is Melissa Harper. I'm 71 years old now. 5 years ago, my daughter-in-law tried to kill me, and my grandson saved my life by breaking 3 years of forced silence. Today, Gregory is 13. He's thriving. He's found his voice, and he uses it for good, advocating for other children in foster care, speaking at schools about resilience, simply being the kind, smart, courageous young man I always knew he could be. People ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish I could go back and change things. The truth is complicated. I regret the pain. I regret the betrayal. I regret that my son made choices that destroyed our family, but I don't regret the strength we found. I don't regret the bond Gregory and I built. And I don't regret learning that even at 66, when someone tries to silence you, you can find your voice. What would you do if you discovered your family was trying to harm you? How would you find the courage to fight back? Have you ever had to choose between forgiveness and justice? Write your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what city you're watching from. Tell me your story. Because all of our stories matter. All of our voices deserve to be heard. And sometimes the quietest voices, the ones that have been silenced the longest, are the ones that change everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, you are never too old, too tired, or too afraid to fight for your life. Stay strong, stay safe, and never let anyone take your voice away. Screen 2 story recommendations appear. If you liked this story, you'll love these other incredible journeys of courage and justice. Click to watch next.